The irony is difficult to escape. Western civilization is, to this very day, the only civilization to have ended slavery and to have pronounced it to be a great evil. Yet where are all the protests against racism and oppression and inequality happening? In the West. But why? Because they can. The unresolvable contradictions in leftist thinking are incredible. In the West, you're perfectly free to protest all you want, about anything you want, including all manner of made-up nonsense like how oppressed you are. If, for example, the United States were 1/10 as oppressive or as racist or as sexist as the left claims it is, you wouldn't be allowed to say how oppressive and racist and sexist it is. You would be shut down immediately, thrown in jail, or possibly disappeared entirely. But the truth is, you're perfectly free to pretend to be completely oppressed. And the idiots in the media, in social media, in Hollywood, in academia, in pop culture, are perfectly free to pretend right along with you that you're oppressed. After which you and they go home each night to warm, safe, secure beds, locking your door behind you, because you never know. But one thing you do know is that no gang of goons or thugs representing this supposedly oppressive regime are going to come knock on your door late at night and roust you out of bed and drag you away to some gulag somewhere. Now try to take your earnest, passionate message of protest to a country where they actually have oppression. Go to China. Try to protest in, say, the streets of Tiananmen Square against the real oppression in China. Go to North Korea. Try your protests in Cuba or Venezuela. See where that gets you. Let me know when you come back. Let me know how it went. I won't hold my breath because it's likely you won't be coming back. This incredible contradiction has been true for a very long time. Remember, well, you may not, there were riots in 1968 in the West. The protesters' favorite thing at that time was to call then-President Johnson a Nazi and a fascist. And there was that irony again. If Johnson were half the Nazi or fascist that they claimed he was, they wouldn't have been free to make that claim. But make that claim they did, out loud and often and all over the news every night. It was true across the entire Western world. All these supposedly fascist and Nazi regimes having no problems allowing their citizenry into the streets to riot as much as they wanted whenever they wanted, and to call the leaders of those regimes any nasty names they wanted. You couldn't really do that in the then Soviet Union of the time, or Communist China, or North Vietnam, at that point North Vietnam, or North Korea, or Cuba, because at that point communism was near the end of its century-long project of slaughtering 100 million of its own citizens in those nations and elsewhere. It's been an unshakable truth for decades now. You do your protesting in the West because you're free to do your protesting in the West. Anywhere else in the world where you try to do that protesting, you die. This is why the Western left is despicable. They're unprincipled cowards. Here in America, for example, they're perfectly free to protest, say, and do anything they want. Because here in America, there's very little actual oppression. It's vital to remember they take to the streets in the West. They riot in the streets in the West because of one simple reason. Because they can. All this would be bad enough, but the American left actually intends to install a system that would implement the same oppression that's going on in the rest of the world, taking full advantage of the West's and America's freedoms to try to abolish the West's and America's freedoms.